Hello everyone, this is Bandish from Chess Gaja. The 44th Chess Olympiad is underway with full swing. Today is the rest day after 6 rounds have been concluded. 6 out of 11 rounds are, I told you, already over, and the teams are struggling to climb to the top of the points table. Let me share you the points table as it stands right now. This is the current points table with Armenia at the top with six match wins out of 6 total. United States of America closely follows Armenia with 5 victories and just one draw. The young and talented second Indian team, is third on the points table with 5 victories and their only loss coming in the last round, that is round 6, that concluded yesterday. Here is the women's team. Here is the points table in the women's category. Hosts India are at the top with 6 out of 6 victories, dominating the women's category. Sixth seeded Azerbaijan is second in place with 5 victories and just one draw. 20th seed Romania also have 5 victories and one draws and jointly share the second position with Azerbaijan. There have been several amazing performances by players from across the board. Outgoing world champion Magnus Carlsen has been phenomenal in his journey so far with 4 wins and one draw in his 5 games. Armenian team has been another outstanding performer, winning all 6 of their matches to claim the top spot. However, this video is dedicated to the young Indian sensation Gukesh D. The 16-year-old Indian Grandmaster is playing for the young and talented India 2 team, currently positioned third on the points table. Gukesh has played and won all 6 of his games for the team, being the only Indian to achieve the feat in both men and women's category. With this stellar performance, Gukesh has a live elo rating of 2,719 points, beating out Vidat Gujarati to become the third highest rated player in India after Vishwanathan Anand and Pantala Harikrishna. One of the best games by Gukesh was played in the fifth round against Spanish legend Alexei Shirov. Let us take a look at that game and try to analyze how Gukesh brilliantly performed in the game against a former World Championship contender. In this game from round 5, Gukesh was playing with the black pieces and Alexei Shirov was playing with the white pieces. Alexei opened with the king's pawn opening and Gukesh replied with the Sicilian defense. In all the previous games played by Gukesh in this Olympiad edition, whenever the king's pawn opening was played, Gukesh replied with the Sicilian defense as in round 3, whereas in round 1, the opponent started with the queen's pawn opening and thus Gukesh could not play the Sicilian defense. But this time he held true to his pattern. The game goes on with the typical Sicilian defense opening. It is interesting to note how Gukesh has been developing his bishop over here in the King's Indian style, pushing this pawn forward and then putting the bishop here in all the games before. But this time he goes for another classical variation where he plays bishop e7 and develops the bishop from there. Otherwise, he'll just push the pawn, the g6 pawn up, and he'll just bring out his bishop on d7 and put it just right there, controlling this huge and very important diagonal of the board. But this time he says, okay, let's mix it up. A3, A5, Rook G1. Now here the engine suggests that Rook G1 might not have been the best move over here. The engine suggests that maybe knight captures on f6 was the best move because knight captures, then bishop captures, and white is pretty much safe over here. Nothing much happens, and this rook move doesn't really do anything much right now. But let's see what happened. So Shiro Alexei plays rook g1, and then Gukesh replies by taking the knight on d5. Bishop takes on d5, and bishop e6. Now, bishop takes on e6, pawn takes on e6. It is also interesting to note how in all of the games played by Gukesh, he often has double pawns in the middle, or if not on the middle, or somewhere here on the flanks. But the double pawns don't seem to stop Gukesh too much, or they don't seem to bother Gukesh too much. In one of the games, I remember Gukesh had double pawns over here, and he made brilliant use of those. If he wants to just make a buffer move and wait for the opponent to do something, he makes brilliant use of these double pawns, as is the case over here. So he doubles his pawn, but apparently Gukesh is good at handling double pawns, so it's good enough for him. He's also opened up his king side now, and he cannot castle here because his king would be exposed to it. But then so is his queen side. Both of his sides are open. But despite that fact, he will castle in the future. Let's see what he does. G4 and queen to D7, G5 pushing the pawn. H takes G5, bishop takes G5, bishop takes G5, and rook takes G5. A series of exchanges over here by both the players. So the move rook to G1, which was played by Alexei Shirov a few moves earlier, this move came in handy after around 6 moves, where yeah he wins a bishop, he wins a pawn, that is. Now Gukesh Castle's queen side, the entire side is open with the pawns on A5 and C5. Only one pawn is on its home square, that is the B7 pawn, guarded by the uh, guarded by the king and the queen. However, it doesn't make much sense to castle when you are already in the open. However, what Gukesh might have thought was he connected his rooks through this castling, and since most of the game is on the king side of the board, he'd like to bring his rooks here and then attack this file, or get his rooks on this semi-open file and then grab control of that and infiltrate through that on this to second rank or something like that. Right. So long castle by Gukesh, queen to e2 by Alexei Shirov, and as expected, Gukesh moves his rook d to f8, trying to grab control of this semi-open file. Long castle by Shirov Alexei as well. Now even his queen side is fairly open. His pawn structure is not all that favorable for castling, but both the players seem to be fine with that. They are daring each other. Okay, come on, our kings are open. Infiltrate the defense if you can. So yes, long castle by Shiro Alexei as well. Rook to rook to f7 by Gukesh, probably trying to double down on the f rank with his rooks and then control this entire semi-open file with the battery that is made. Maybe even the queen can come in later on, and then that battery would be just too dangerous for Shiro Alexei to handle. So that might be the idea behind rook to f7, rook back to g2, and here Gukesh pushes the a4 pawn. Now this seems like a buffer move. He's sort of waiting for Shiro Alexei to make a move. Even this passive move by Shiro Alexei, where he takes back his rook, it doesn't really serve much purpose as far as I can see. And Gukesh says, okay, yeah, you want to wait? Even I have got time to wait. Let's see what you can do. I won't be making the first move. I won't be initiating a series of exchange or anything. So maybe he also pushes this pawn. He also pushes on a4 as a waiting move to see to force Alexei to move something and uh, initiate some activity on the board. And Alexei takes the challenge. He's like, all right, I can also double my rooks. Now see, even before Alexei pushes rook back to rook g2, he could have made this battery right over here. He could have simply done this, and yeah, this battery would have been pretty much more active, and it would have been activated much sooner than wasting a move coming taking his rook back to g2 and then making the battery. But all right. So rook d to g1, and Gukesh continues pushing pawns on the queen side. He knows that his queen side is anyways open, his king is open. So he's like, why not just push the pawns and build pressure on the opponent's queen side where his king is also castled. So he pushes b5 over here, and knight to g5, attacking the rook over here. Obviously, rook moves back. Like the rook could have gone here on like uh, rook 7 to f8, but however, if Cookies did do that, then this rook's pathway to this semi-open file would have been blocked, and yeah, that's just messy. So Cookies goes to e7, pawn push by Shirov Alexei in the form of d4, captures, queen captures on b5. This pawn is dying now, and there are no threats as such, but yeah, now even this pawn can be captured. You know, freeing Gukesh of the double pawns. But yeah, so here Gukesh offers a queen trade. Uh, Gukesh is not no, they are materially up. As they are both the players are materially equal right now, and but Gukesh thinks that all right, yeah, I maybe have an upper hand, positionally, or he just thinks that if he can take this into the end game with equal pieces, he thinks that he can win this. So he offers a queen trade, but Shiro Alexei declines. He checks Gukesh's king with queen to a6, but Gukesh, being determined to exchange the queens, he offers the queen exchange again, and this time Shiro Alexei accepts the exchange. So it captures, and finally the pawn on d4 is also captured by Shiro Alexei, and captures again by Gukesh. See, the double pawns on this file, the double pawns were bundled on the e file earlier. Uh, he got rid of them, but immediately after he got rid of the double pawns, there are double pawns here again. So yeah, Gukesh does not seem to mind the double pawns at all. He handles them really well, as we'll see in the game further also. Rook to d1, attacking this pawn. Rook to d1, attacking this pawn. Then obviously Gukesh has to defend the pawn. So knight to c6. Pawn push by Shiro Alexei f4, and another pawn push by Gukesh in the form of e5. Now here, Shiro Alexei plays f5, but the engine suggests that maybe no, he should not have pushed over here. He should have taken the pawn. So if he would have taken, maybe Gukesh would take it with the pawn on the d double pawn on the d file, thus undoubling his pawn, straightening out his pawn structure, and with these two very connected pass pawns. Alright, let's play it out. So captures, and now Gukesh would have these two connected pawns in the center of the board against just one pawn for Shiro Alexei. But yeah, so maybe Alexei did not want to uh, give an opportunity to Gukesh to straighten out his doubled pawns on the D file. So he decides that all right, I'll push. He pushes knight to a5. Now this pawn is protected, and it doesn't. Now this pawn is protected by the pawn on e5, and it doesn't no longer requires knight to remain on c6. So Gukesh says, okay, yeah, let's put the knight in a better position on a better square. So he remaneuvers his knight to e6 by Shiro Alexei, grabbing a very powerful square. He's currently attacking this pawn twice, and while there is only one support, he's also connecting these vital squares on uh, on the opponent's seventh and eighth ranks. So a pretty much a good position for the knight. It's also protected by this pawn over here and cannot be touched. The black's knight is nowhere near e6 and cannot offer an exchange anytime soon. So yeah, a very powerful knight position for Shiro Alexei's knights, and a very nice move. Obviously, Gukesh proceeds with his plan. He's like, all right, you got a good square for your knight. I got a good square for my knight as well. So he pushes his knight to b3 with a check. Shiro Alexei dodges the check by king to b1. Uh, Gukesh pushes king to b6, rook to c2, rook to h4. This pawn is dying over here, and this pawn is this pawn is directly dying over here. But Shiro Alexei does not think it necessary to defend that pawn. He instead goes for this pawn over here, and he takes the pawn on a4. So it was sort of a pawn exchange by the players. Knight to c5, attacking the rook on a4, as well as offering an exchange to the knight on e6. Um, Shiro Alexei decides that all right, I don't want to exchange straight away. Like you can exchange it if you want later on if I allow you to, but I won't be exchanging the knights anytime soon. So he moves his rook to b4 with a check. Uh, Gukesh dodges the check with king to c6. And now Shiro Alexei really does not want to exchange his knights, does not want to allow Gukesh to exchange the knights because uh, maybe even Shiro is afraid of an even out end game, materially speaking, where Gukesh might just have an upper hand. So he does not want to let Gukesh exchange the knights. So he moves his rook to c1, thus pinning the knight with a check. Gukesh says, alright, I'll not get rid of the pin immediately. I'll attack the pawns. I'll continue my attack. I'll launch another attack on the pawn on h2. So Gukesh moves his rook to e2, and uh, obviously Shiro has to defend. He cannot let the pawn die because it's a really nice pass pawn on the h file. So yeah, he plays h4, but the engine says this was a mistake. The best move here would have been rook rook to b8. Now, even if Gukesh kills this pawn over here, you can simply just let's play it out. Even if Gukesh kills the pawn over here, you can just check it wherever the king goes. This is this is really bad for you can just keep checking again, and like if it goes here, check. I don't know. Even some ideas like the rook to g8 can be played, and this pawn cannot be protected anymore. Like white will have to black will have to work a lot to just do this. Yeah, so rook to b8 it could have been a really good move, but no. Shirov Alexei thinks that okay, h4 pushing the pawn is the best move, and he goes forward with that. King to d5. Again, this engine says that this might not have been the best move. The engine suggests that d3 would have been a better move. D3 advancing the pawn, just two steps away from promotion. No immediate attacks coming. Yeah, I mean, he can. Shiro Alexei can attack with rook to da, rook to d1, but the pawn is protected anyways by the knight over here on c5, so he doesn't need to worry about it. He can just simply push it again. Um, and yeah, it's really dangerous, and it can get really complicated if Shiro Alexei is not careful. Uh, but all right. So Gukesh plays king to d5, rook to b5, king to king to e4. Finally, Alexei says, "All right, let's. You want to you have been offering the knight exchange for way too long. It's getting too tempting now. So Shiro Alexei finally accepts the exchange offer of the knights and takes on knight to c5 with a check. Gukesh takes the knight. Obviously, has to take the knight with the pawn on d6. He takes on the knight, and rook c to c5. Rook takes the pawn on the c5. Yeah. So in this exchange, Gukesh did lose an extra pawn, but it's fine. He's positionally too superior to Shiro Alexei by this time to care about one pawn, and he'll soon recover the pawn anyways. Finally, he pushes the pawn on d3, and this pawn is really getting menacing now. Just two spots away from a promotion with no rooks to guard the first rank. King to c king to c1, trying to guard the square here in case the pawn ever gets to promote, ever gets to, gets too close to promotion. But yeah, it won't really help. Even the engine says that this move was a mistake. The engine suggests that instead rook d5 would have been better. The king obviously cannot take the rook because the rook is protected. And now, even if even if Gukesh pushes the pawn is safe for now, but he cannot push it for further. Like after some move, like I don't know, just some buffer move like this. Even if Gukesh does push, it cannot really work. So yeah, rook to d5. Uh, yeah, king to a2, rook to c1, and you start pushing your very strong pawn on the h file, and it will just race away to glory if you can find a way to deal with this pawn on g7. King to king to e3, and you just push the pawn. Yeah, this is the line of variation that the engine suggests that could have been played if king to c1 was not played over here. But all right, let's stick with the actual game. Let's come back to the actual game. And yes, so king to f3, uh, rook to c3, another pawn push by Gukesh, that is e4, rook to d5. Finally, trying to cover this entire file, and since the king already guards the square once and the rook attacks it twice, yeah, he cannot really promote his pawn. Fish cannot really promote his pawn right now. He has to add extra padding to this square on d1. All right, and the king comes to e3. He's like, all right, I need more support. I'll get more support for the pawn. Finally, Alexei thinks that all right, it's about time I start pushing my pawns as well, and he pushes b4, also making room for his king if it ever if it's ever needed. Like if if the pawn is here, then maybe he can escape. His king can escape if it's needed. Otherwise, just pushing his pawn. It's a pass pawn. It can easily just race to victory, race to glory. If Alexei can find the time to do that, not physical, not like the time, not the minutes time, but time on the board. Um, Gukesh pushes his rook to e1 with a check, and absolutely. So had this pawn been here, there wouldn't have been any escape for the king. Like this would have been checkmate. Uh, it would have been a really inglorious manner to lose in, but of course, Alexei knows better than that, so he pushed his pawn well in advance, and now his king has room to breathe. And that's where his king goes, king to e2, and this is where uh, Alexei resigned the game because there is nothing you can do to stop this pawn promotion. It has been protected twice. The square is protected twice by the king and the rook. The pawn will just race to glory over here. There's nothing you can do. You cannot stop it by putting a rook over here. Yeah, there is no way in which you can do. The only thing you can do is like sacrifice your rook for it. Like maybe yeah, the only thing you can do is yeah, just push a pawn, then do this, and just keep trying to push a pawn. If Gukesh just promotes his pawn, you just have to give away your rook for that, and it'll be an easy win for Gukesh from here with playing with two rooks against one rook. And although he will be down by 2 points, but one extra rook will compensate more than enough for that. So yes, af- after this move over here, this was move 44th by Gukesh. Alexei resigned the game, and Gukesh won a masterclass of the game. Speaking about his match with the legendary player, Gukesh said later on in an interview, "I got a fine position after an error from him and slowly outplayed him. It's a pleasure to play a player of Shirov's caliber, and to beat him is special." So yes, this was one of the brilliant games played by the young sensation Gukesh D. in the ongoing 44th Chess Olympiad. This was round 5 of the game. Although Gukesh has played some brilliant games apart from this one, also I thought this game would be the perfect example to share with the community. So yeah, that was the game. Since today is a rest day and there were no recaps to be done, I thought I'll just uh, I'll just review a game by Gukesh, do more chess related content. So yeah, that's all from my side. The video has been quite long today, but that's natural since I was recapping a game and not around. I hope you guys understood the game, and I will see you all tomorrow with the recap of round 7. Thank you for watching the video.